Okay,
Let's get to it.
let's get to it.
You want me to lead the question, or you want to? Well, you just left. You in a calm state. I think you'll MC it better. Go ahead, my brother.
Um, one of the interesting conversations that we was having on in Africa, it was a common theme in different countries that we went to, was the conversation of polygamy. It was interesting. It was interesting for me because it was the first time that I actually heard it in detailed, in depth from two sides, from men that have multiple wives currently, and then also from women, maybe women that are not currently in it, but women that grew up in it and
or witnessed
agree with it and are okay with it. So that was just an interesting perspective for me because you always hear about it, but I haven't really, had personal, in-depth, long-form conversations. And this trip actually gave us an opportunity to do that. And like I said, in different countries, different people with different genders, right? So I gained a lot of insight.
So just like investigative journalism?
Investigative journalism at the
So let's tell us tonight. What did you learn?
Okay. So from the woman's perspective, this was interesting because like I said, I never really heard it from the woman's perspective. From a woman's perspective, they was like, somebody was telling me that they was like, you know what? We always talk about it, like when we like their friends growing up, they're like, we always talk about that you never want to be the first wife.
Oh wow. Okay, why is that?
She was like, me personally, I'd rather be the second or third wife. Because the first wife bears the brunt of everything, right? It's almost like an experiment the first time you get married, if you think about it, right?
Okay.
So that's a lot of pressure. That's, the man's meeting the family, all of that. By the time you've gotten a groove of things, like let's say like 3-5 years into a relationship and you get a second wife, you're kind of already on a smooth trajectory on a certain level, right?
Okay.
So there's less pressure on the second wife and even less pressure on the third wife. But she also made it, her point was that she was like, why would I can't provide everything that a man wants, right? So I would drive myself crazy if I'm trying to be every single thing. Like he might need this from me, right? But I can't give him everything. So if he needs some other parts of things, then there's somebody else that can give him that. And I can just focus on giving him this. Another thing that she said to me that was interesting, because I was like, well, how does this work? Like, would it all live in one house? She's like, that's problematic because, of course, at some level, there's ego and, there's different women.
You got about 3 houses for 3 wives? What?
3, yeah. You got to have.
Y'all better go get them triple bunk beds off Amazon. Go ahead.
You got to have different living. But she was like, that's also a thing, too, because she's like, look, I might get tired of seeing somebody every single day, right? So it's like, look, go with your other wife for 3 days, then come back to me for 4 days. Like it gives me a break. It gives me time to just focus on myself. It gives me time. So that was a very interesting perspective because the way that she described it, right? It made it like the arranged marriage thing, right? I never had a conversation with somebody until I met the guy that was telling me about it, and I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how she described it to me, so okay, no, this makes a lot of sense,
So if you have 3 wives, how many sides do you get over there? Or are the wives the sides?
Well, that's the thing too, right? So here's my thing. I'm not to say that polygamy is for everybody, but I don't think that it shouldn't be just shunned either, right? Because in America, you can't have multiple wives, but how many people are married and have side chicks? A lot.
I forgot who said it. Most people are in polygamous relationships and just don't know it.
And just don't know it.
And have no clue. Yep.
That's the great thing about it, right? So it's like, okay, would you rather be married and have a side chick? Or would you rather be not married and just have multiple different women that you're dealing with? That's pretty common too, right? That's common. That's not shunned upon. That's not looked down upon. To be like, okay, I'm dating 3 different women simultaneously, right? That's pretty much normal.
Fellas, if you can't handle one and say no to the honeydew list for one, don't go to Africa and try and get 3 wives, because now you're going to cut 3 sets of grass on Saturday. However you leave one household, you got to leave all.
But I also think that it's a certain level of responsibility that
for sure.
So when you date somebody, you're not really responsible for. I mean, you might buy them stuff. I mean, depending on, you might be paying for, depending on whatever you're doing. Like some people pay bills, whatever, but you can get out of that at any given moment.
For sure.
But if you're married to somebody, then you have responsibility, right? I guess that's the difference between.
Well, for the 3 days a week, according to the second wife.
3 days a week that you're seeing them, but you're still responsible.
True.
So you still gotta, maintain a certain life for them, right? And the life is maintained by the means that you have.
Sure.
And another thing that's prevalent on the continent is the dowry.
Okay, you was alluding to it on Monday, but yeah, tell us more.
So dowry is something that, once again, it's not something that's really, I've never heard about it in America.
Me either.
But the dowry is to say, okay, you're presenting when you get married, right? Before you get married, you have to present the bride's family with offerings. So we met somebody and he's getting married and he had to go to another country and he had to talk. So it's a negotiation. They come, the father, mother, the family, they'll come with a list of things, right? And they say a lot of times it'd be like very unrealistic expectations.
Such as what?
Oh man, it might.
So you need a mediator for the dowry?
It might be gold. It might be just a bunch of like tomatoes, like it's onions, cows. So the Maasai tribe, they do cows. 10 cows is the dowry, right? So for every wife that you marry, you got to give 10 cows.
It's a lot of wagyu, but okay.
Because that's how they measure their wealth. They measure their wealth in cows.
Okay.
But some people, it just depends. But the dowry, a lot of times is negotiated. What they was telling me is that a lot of times the first offer is very unreasonable. So it's
start low and work your way down.
So now you got to negotiate it. You know what I'm saying? Play it, and then you work your way down, right? Okay, dowry. That's a common thing across Africa is the dowry system. So, okay, so now the dowry, it comes into play. And then that never happens in America.
No, it used to way back in the day, but no.
Yeah. So
last 100 years, no.
The whole point of the dowry is that it's an offering because that family's losing something by having their daughter, be your wife. It's a loss for the family, right? Because she might have been helping out in the family financially, at the house, whatever. Right now, that's not going to be happening in the same capacity anymore because she's going to be your wife. So as an offering of good faith, you have to compensate the family before you actually have the acceptance of marriage.
Damn. Okay. 30 cows a lot. Some of y'all gonna go over there and have to buy 50 cows off the rip. That's crazy. Whew.
And cows are not cheap. Cows are not cheap
at all. At all. So
yeah.
Whew. Okay.
So it was interesting. Long story short, it was definitely some investigative journalism, and it's not a sensational thing of just like, I just want to have 5 wives just to, just cause, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a real system in place. Why it's done, how it's done correctly, best practices to make it a successful situation. And I just think that it's interesting just to explore different cultures and to see different people. You got to be open-minded, and you got to understand that maybe the way that we do things is one way, but that doesn't mean that that's the only way.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's best. And the reason why I truly believe why you can't have multiple wives here is because most men don't have the means to take care of both households or 3 households and then not fall on the state. The reason for child support and that marital law part is so it does not fall back on the state and causes bankruptcy in certain states. So that's fascinating. I know a lot of y'all passport bros want to take the game to Ghana. You got to show us some gold, some Bitcoin. Bring your treasure wallets and swap something out.